Hey, everybody. Welcome to Wide Receiver 2 Theory. I am Scott Simpson, Nimble W Numbers on Twitter. And today I'm very excited to be joined by a local legend, a golf legend in the Maryland, D.C. area. I've seen him get several birdies. I'm not lying there. And he beat me in a putting contest, so I know he's really good. I had to make sure with Denny how to say this first, but it is NBC Sports and Rotoworld. Welcome, Denny Carter.
Thank you, Scott. And yeah, we're golfing buddies. We haven't been able to play 18 this summer, but we did, like you said, we had a putting contest with Zach Kruger, who is my colleague at Rotoworld, and I believe you guys let me win, which I appreciate.
You hit a 50-footer. You hit a 50-footer to
I
win.
did hit a 50-footer.
You did.
That's true. The media won't report on it. Curiously, there's no video of it anywhere, and I wish
drone footage.
I wish there were, because it probably goes down as the best putt I've ever hit in my life.
Well, I thought I had hit a good putt because it was about a foot and a half from the hole, and I was like, "Oh, I got a great chance to beat you." And then you drained it, and
I said, no.
Yeah, and we had to buy you beers. That was the rule.
You did.
So,
You bought me 2.5 seltzers.
Yeah,
It was actually beer. It was actually beer.
Well, yeah, we don't want to lie to the folks. And you were, enjoying yourself. I'm not going to let people know, but you're having fun. So
I was.
Well, I'm excited because here's what we're here for. We're here to talk about wide receiver 2 theory. It's a theory I came up with after I talked to JJ online about 5 years ago and asked him, had anybody looked at the average draft position relative to where people drafted wide receiver 1s on teams compared to wide receiver 2s, 3s, 4s, whatever it is. It's just the idea was that over the course of our drafting, in every year, not just 1 year, but every year, we overvalue wide receiver 1s and their ADP is inflated, and the secondary wide receivers on teams, their ADP is deflated, which creates value. And I've been kind of championing this theory, and you've seen some merit in it as well as have others. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through a couple things, teammate battles, some of the struggles that we've kind of seen in camp, and kind of get your expert opinion on it. So I want to be clarified for people. This is not wide receiver 2, meaning the wide receiver 13 through 24 in your draft. This is on a team.
Right.
And so just to clarify, in case people don't know, Denny does, and most folks do, but that is my theory, is an ADP value. Kind of, we as a general public don't really understand wide receivers.
And every year, you're right. I mean, there are situations where the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 are flipped come the regular season. After months and months of us thinking it's going to be one way, it's the other way. And so it is good to identify those situations just from a process standpoint.
Yes. And last year it was Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The year before it was Mike Evans. I mean, they flip flop every year. So guess who's a value this year? Chris Godwin. We'll talk about him later. But let's jump into some teammate battles, and one that is kind of hot off the presses all the time. Brandon Ayuk, will he be traded? Will he not be traded? Him and Debo are right back to back, right in the 4-for-4 rankings. I do the composite rankings because I kind of want to see across the industry where people drafting. And right now they're at 15. For Debo, 16 for Ayuk. It kind of was switched before. It was Ayuk at head. Now it's Debo. So, what do you think about this matchup? And if they both are on the team and things go forward this year, they're both starting for San Francisco, kind of who are you targeting and how's that going to play out?
Ayuk ran super hot last year as far as, downfield receptions, as far as, yards per route run, yards after the catch. That's part of his game, and that's baked into why people think he's so good. He is good. I tend to lean toward Debo there because of his usage. I think that he's less sensitive to game script a little bit, whereas Ayuk is kind of sensitive to the game script. I mean, unless the game is a close one or the Niners are trailing, which never happens, basically. Ayuk there's always a danger that Ayuk won't make the most of his limited opportunity. I hope that makes sense to folks. Now, I will say that there's a report out there right now from Ian Rappaport that the Steelers and Niners have a deal in place for Ayuk to go to Pittsburgh.
Ooh, okay.
I was just talking actually with Pat Doherty on the Rotoworld Football Show how if that comes to fruition, and who knows, we've been talking about this Ayuk trade thing for 8 months now. If it does happen, then I think Debo needs to be drafted certainly as a top 12 receiver in PPR formats. And then Ayuk, I mean, honestly, Scott, I would have trouble drafting him in Arthur Smith's offense, having to split, targets with George Pickens. So I guess right now, no matter what, I'm leaning Debo between those
Yeah,
two.
I'm with you on that too. And um, Ayuk, I love his A dot 14.1. That's what you were kind of saying. They pull him out on those play action passes downfield. You're getting those air
Right.
yards. He almost had 1,500 air yards last year. And so
Oof.
if that does go to Pittsburgh, that's not going to Pittsburgh. That's not going
No.
to go to Pittsburgh with you at all. None of it. You got no air yards in Arthur Smith's offense. It's against the law. So
Also, yeah, I mean, you look at like last year Ayuk's just raw pass routes, right? And you have him like around the I'm sorry, I had it here just a second ago and now I can't find it. You have him, I mean, outside the top 50. Yeah, 52nd in pass routes last year. He basically ran as many pass routes as like Rashid Shaheed, Trey Palmer, Alan Lazard. Now he made the most of them and he was hyper efficient.
right.
Can he carry that hyper efficiency over to the Steelers offense with Justin Fields and or Russell Wilson as his quarterback? My answer is no, but to what extent? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, and if that would happen, that's a nightmare scenario for wide receiver
Yeah.
two theory. Like both those guys, Pickens, who now is being drafted as a clear wide receiver one on the team, they both just take a dent for sure. So kind of fingers crossed that does not happen.
Right.
But I'm leaning Debo as well, and you're the fourth iteration of the show, fourth episode of this little mini season, and the Debo trend. I'm on it. That's kind of where I've been leaning the whole time as well. So I like that. Let's talk about another battle that's not really a battle. We saw your tweet go viral, by the way. I love that, your little one play in, and Stephon Diggs already chirping at CJ Stroud. That was perfect, by the way. But Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs are within 3 or 4 picks of each other. And this is wide receiver 2 and 3 on the team because Nico Collins is a couple rounds ahead of them. How are you approaching Nico and Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs, excuse me. When you get there,
Right.
most people are fading Diggs. Are you on that kind of fade Diggs train as well?
It's I would say that I'm fading Tank Dell more than I'm fading Diggs at this point. Although, Diggs is going at wide receiver 19, and that happens to be in an area where I like a lot of receivers, including Cooper Kupp going at wide receiver 18, Jalen Waddle going at wide receiver 20, 21, DK Metcalf,
Yes.
DJ Moore, one spot below that. So I love all of those receivers that I just named. I prefer them very much to Stefan Diggs. Now, Tank Dell's all the nerds are saying that Tank Dell's preseason usage was not ideal, and by that I mean Tank Dell was not part of 2 receiver sets in the Houston offense. That was Stefan Diggs and Nico Collins. That means that Tank Dell is kind of a rotational slot guy. He has great chemistry, obviously, with CJ Stroud, and he is a productive player, and he's exciting. But if a guy is running only 60%, 70% of the routes, that's going to be an issue in the long run. So
Yeah.
I think that Tank Dell is certainly being overdrafted. I think probably Stefan Diggs is being overdrafted, but he probably has a safe enough floor there in that Houston offense.
Yeah, I saw somebody say the good news: Tank Dell scored a touchdown. The bad news: he didn't play a lot of the plays. So
Right.
that's you have to be hyper efficient, and then if also you're touchdown chasing, I mean, you're not gonna. That's not gonna be a way to win your league. So yeah, no, I like that. Okay, last one. This is a little bit deeper dive, but these guys are both free at the end of your drafts. Jalen Polk, rookie wide receiver. He's wide receiver 67, and then Demario Douglas coming back. They call him Pop for some reason. I think he pops. But he was their slot receiver last year in New England. They have a quarterback change. Drake May is in. Not really. Jacoby Brissett's in there now. But it's a new offense. There's some variance for sure. And these guys are 67 and 68. So you can get them both if you want. I don't want both. Who are you picking up if you're in that scenario?
No, listen, if you're drafting 2 New England Patriots receivers, maybe find a different hobby. You can take up you can take up darts. You can join a local table tennis league.
Weaving. There's a weave.
Weaving. Yeah. I
Looms
mean,
around. Yeah.
go out for some walks, things that, there are things that you can do. It doesn't have to be fantasy football. Anyway,
Practice breathing,
right. So yeah, I mean, it's Polk for me. I think that Jacoby Brissett could be, I know this sounds funny, but something of like a fantasy friendly quarterback. And by that, I mean, this Patriots team is going to stink. We know this. That means that they're probably going to be facing a lot of negative game script. That means that probably Brissett is going to be dropping back a lot. Brissett is probably the single slowest quarterback in the NFL at the moment. He's not going to run at all.
Nope.
Everything is going to be a check down, right? And Jalen Polk is operating in training camp as the primary slot guy. So, and lots of middle of the field, short area stuff. So Polk could be kind of a PPR scammy sort of guy, and I don't mind that. Although I will say that, as a zero RB bro, I'm not really mining for targets in that area of the draft.
Yeah. You're looking for the zero RB guys. They're like Chuba Hubbards, guys like that.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, if you started your draft, you're high T dude, and you're getting a lot of running backs early, Jalen Polk makes sense as a guy you can grab, maybe start in the flex in a 14-team league, something like that.
And he's shifty too. He could pick up some yak after the kids are saying.
Yeah. So, no, he's good. I mean, his college profile is very good.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna jump away from the teammate battle for now. That was pretty good. And we're gonna just talk like not two teammates. Now it's like a plethora of bros, right? We got 4 or maybe 5 guys on all these teams that we're gonna mention next who are kind of siphoning targets away from each other. So first offense we're gonna check in on is the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love, MVP candidate up there this year, just has potential to break out. They've got 4 wide receivers, and most people like Dontarian Wicks the most. He's their 4th wide receiver. That's the guy that everyone talks about.
I know.
So out of Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dobbs or Dubs or wherever it is, and Wicks, how are you kind of navigating this wide receiver room?
How are you doing now?
Right.
It's hard. It's tough because Matt LaFleur had a funny quote yesterday.
I saw that.
He said, when people ask me about who's going to be the number 1, I want to quote throw up.
Yeah, puke.
Which first of all, let's tone down the drama, Matt.
The rhetoric.
But I think that is kind of our final and most important indication that there is not going to be a number 1 receiver, and that the top 4 guys, meaning Dobbs, Watson, Wicks, and Reed, are going to be rotational. And then you have guys like Bo Melton, who's good.
Yep.
You have Dubose, whatever that guy's name is, who broke out in the Packers preseason game the other day. Who knows? Who knows what could happen here with those top 6 receivers? So what I would say is, unless you're getting an ADP break on any of these guys, I feel like you could probably just go elsewhere, because it's going to be frustrating. I don't think that there's going to be a guy. I don't think that Jaden Reed, I don't think Christian Watson are going to come out as guys who are going to be guaranteed 8 to 10 targets a game. Christian Watson, he's healthier. He figured out his hamstring issue. That's awesome. That should be really good for Jordan Love, but he's going to continue to be a high variance downfield option for this team, right? And so that's frustrating for fantasy. I wish I had better advice, but I do think that we are slamming our head against the wall if we're trying to figure out who's going to be number 1. Matt LaFleur just told you we don't do that here.
Right. That doesn't happen. Well, and here's what I like. You can get Dontavian Wicks at wide receiver 60, and so if you are going to try to get somebody, Dobbs is in the 11th end of the 11th round, and Wicks is in the 14th round. So you're not wasting a lot of your draft capital reaching for Watson in the 9th or the 8th or trying to get Reed, because Reed had so many touchdowns and contested catch and stuff. But the rotation is key, like you said. If you're not going to be on the field all the time, then you could be off the field when the touchdown pass is thrown, and it could just be to another receiver. So
you're right. If you want a piece of this Packers offense, this passing game, and it's an ascendant passing game with now the highest paid quarterback in the league in Jordan Love at the controls, then I do think that the best bet would probably be Dobbs or Wicks. You're right.
They're so cheap. Like they're free in my way. Okay. Well, I love that. Let's transition. We do need to get you out of here because you got a tight time crunch. You're a man of the working class.
I'm creating content nonstop today.
Never stops. Kansas City Chiefs have had a kind of nebulous wide receiver situation. Hollywood Brown came in. You had Rushy, the racer Rice, and then You also have Sky Moore. He disappeared last year. There's so many different things going on. Maybe Travis Kelce will be good this year. But we know that Hollywood is hurt right now. How are you looking at the Chiefs in general? This year,
Yeah.
Xavier Worthy, he looks like he can't come off of any type of press coverage. He might die. So this looks like it's going to be more Travis Kelce, I think, than last year, at least when he averaged 14 points per game. He averaged 21 points per game in the playoffs. So, there's a Travis Kelce in there somewhere, but
Yeah.
what about the rest of them?
Well, I mean, you have to remember that the Chiefs don't actually try until the second round of the playoffs.
Right,
That's
right.
when they actually start trying. So maybe we'll get some effort in the regular season this year. We'll see. I think Rashee Rice comes out as the big winner here with Marquise Brown going down with an injury that required him to go to the hospital.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if Marquise Brown is out for the opening of the season. The league has not interviewed Rashee Rice about his various legal situations. And so it appears that Rashee Rice is going to play the whole season. And that's big for a guy going at his ADP. I think if you bought the dip on Rashee Rice, you're going to benefit tremendously. I mean, I'm looking up his ADP. It's going at wide receiver 36 around Jaden Reed, the aforementioned Jaden Reed. I would take Rice happily over Reed.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson. Maybe I'd take Deontay. But I think, Rashee Rice is probably locked in as a top 25 receiver. So I would go in that direction. Xavier Worthy is going to be cool. He's going to be exciting. They're going to be a lot of cool plays. He's the fastest guy ever. Mahomes has a big arm. That's going to work. That's going to work in some situations. It's going to be cool for real football. For fantasy, I don't know. know.
Yeah. The amount of targets too. There'll be high volume downfield targets maybe, but you're not going to throw 50 downfield passes.
No,
you know what I'm
and
saying? So
also-
you're not going to do that.
Also, we have to remember that even if the Chiefs want to get back to like vintage Mahomes, like throwing downfield to Tyreek Hill, that Mahomes, right? I don't know if they can do that with the way that defenses now approach the Mahomes offense, which is with the shell coverages, with two guys 30 yards off the line of scrimmage saying, no, absolutely not. You're not getting this 50-yard deep ball.
Yeah.
Until that changes, I just think that they're going to have to be creative. Mahomes is going to have to keep dinking and dunking, but dinking and dunking to the fastest receiver of all time in Xavier Worthy might not be a bad thing.
Yeah. If you can get him behind the linebackers and in front of the safeties, maybe he can just make some moves and then he can run past them.
And that worked with Tyreek in Kansas City for a long time.
Yeah. The holes in the zone are there to exploit. So, all right. We only have a few minutes left. So, let me jump down. You mentioned a few wide receivers that you did like earlier. So I heard you mention Jalen Waddle and Cooper Kupp, right? So out of this group of Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp, Diggs is in there. You mentioned you weren't really going to get him there. And then Devonta Smith, besides Diggs. So out of Smith, Waddle, Kupp, who are you kind of more hopeful that you get at value right there? Smith's a couple picks later, but how are you kind of approaching those wide receiver twos on their teams? Because they're all in offenses where they get target funneled. They're going to get 20% probably target shares, all of them. And so they all have massive upside.
I would hope so, Scott. If they're not getting 20%, I'm done. I'm going to be broke. Yeah, it's completely. Right. So apparently Devonta Smith is just tearing up training camp and being dominant in the short area, intermediate, downfield, everything, right? And I do think that this Kellen Moore offense coming to Philadelphia, which will be more creative, less stodgy, less stuck in the mud, I think more adaptive this season. I think that could be great for both Smith and AJ Brown. But of course, AJ Brown, you have to get in the first round or maybe the top of the second. So you have to pay the premium for Brown. I do think that there are maybe some scenarios where Devonta Smith ends up outscoring Brown, and you can get him later. And I think that Smith could be the wide receiver 2 cover guy, the wide receiver 2 theory cover guy this year because of that. So, the hope is that the Eagles are a little more pass heavy, especially in high leverage situations. And that would be awesome for a guy like Smith. I think Smith is a slam dunk, especially if you start the draft with a running back or two, get Smith. he can be a top 12 guy, obviously.
Yeah, I love him. I agree. And he's wide receiver 23, 24. So you're getting like, in between wide receiver 2, 3 value. That's ridiculous.
I think that his ADP will look probably a little silly come the end of the season, where we'll say, why weren't we taking him, higher? Let me just see real quick. He's going, where is he going? He's going, I can't find him.
So he's around like DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Malik Neighbors, Pittman. So he's all in that,
Yeah. So yeah, gosh, well, DJ Moore and Neighbors I like a lot. Yeah. So I mean that's a great area for receivers, but
yes,
I do think wide receiver 23, he has top 10 upside, so you could get that's a big value potentially.
Yeah. No, like, okay, a couple minutes left. One more of these tiers, and then we're going to do a quick, who would you rather have as some young talent? This is the second tier, not as prolific as the first tier we just mentioned, but in this tier, you have T. Higgins coming back, bouncing back, got paid, even though it's a forced payment, he got paid. Keenan Allen, and then Chris Godwin. Out of those three, who are you kind of finding yourself? They're all vets, they're all guys who've been around except for Higgins, on their second or third, go rounds, contract wise. Higgins trying to get the big nut, so he's got some things to kind of play for. How are you looking at those guys?
Yeah, I guess I like Higgins, although the injury history freaks me out. And I know I'm not supposed to say that. I know I'm supposed to say all injuries are random and they are not sticky. And
right.
To an extent they are, but I Higgins is constantly dinged up. So that is my worry there for Higgins. He's going around like Zay Flowers and Cooper. I would rather take Cooper.
Yeah.
I'd rather take, well, actually, I guess that's it, because I was going to say I'd rather take Keenan Allen, but I don't think so anymore. And now that we're hearing that he's a hefty boy with up to 230 pounds reportedly.
I'm 192. What are you doing there, Keenan? Come on.
And not looking fleet of foot apparently in training camp or in the first preseason game for the Bears.
No.
So yeah, I think I'd go with Higgins out of those guys.
No, I like it. All right, we gotta get you out of here in like 1 minute or 2 minutes. So I'm gonna do just a real quick. Christian Watson, you're on the clock. Christian Watson or Jackson Smith and Jig, but you have to pick one of them.
Oh boy. I'm in on the Seattle offense. I think that they're going to be super pass heavy. I think they're going to use a lot of 3 receiver sets. And so I will go with JSN.
I love that. All right, next one. Rookies, right? 2 kind of big-bodied rookies, maybe touchdown upside for both of them. Keon Coleman or Brian Thomas Jr.?
That's hard. Brian Thomas is going to make a lot of big plays, but I don't think that he's going to be, seeing the sort of targets that can smooth over his performances. Where if he doesn't hit on the big play, he can make up for it with a few intermediate receptions. I don't think that's happening, so I'm not going. Who was the other guy? Thomas and
it's Keon Coleman.
I go Coleman.
He played touchdown upside.
He ran 100% of the routes this past week in the preseason game with Josh Allen at quarterback. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, and you can get him cheap too. I mean, he's the first Buffalo Bill coming off the board, but not counting Dalton Kincaid. But I love it. All right, so we got to get you out of here. Tell people where they can find you besides all over the internet and at Rotoworld and at NBC Sports.
Yes, it's just, anywhere on the internet, I will be there at CD Carter 13 on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. I'm also on Threads for those who do that. And then check out the Rotoworld football show, which you can find anywhere podcasts are sold.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Denny Carter. You're one of my favorites, and I cannot wait to beat you again in the Crab Cake League this year. We'll see you guys next time. I had to get it out on the end. All right, guys.